we created our first vehicle data logger. Whenever you introduce new technology in any industry, the user always attacks the technology. It's not an easy solution, but I think going forward, that's the only way. And that I think is unforgivable. As an Indian transport owner, my blood boils if my driver is going to sit in the cab, switch on the engine and switch on his air conditioner. So that was a constant challenge.
Good morning, friends, and welcome to another very interesting conversation on Trans India, real people, real emotions. If you think road transport is an inefficient business, imagine what it was decades back when trucks could not even be tracked. But given the fact that inefficiency was at such a peak, even a small change would have had a significant impact. And that was also the opening statement of our guest today, Vikram Puri. Vikram, who is currently the Group President and CEO of Trans World Technologies Limited, introduced vehicle tracking in India when not many people knew about it. The technology was tested in developed nations, but this was something new for the Indian transporters, especially the drivers. The technology was met with skepticism by the transporters and as a threat by the drivers. However, Vikram proved that this technology had the power to improve efficiency, even if it was in small numbers initially. We caught up with Vikram in Pune and tracked the journey and challenges that he faced in seeding this technology in India and how this industry has developed over the years, even though there is still room for many more changes and developments. At the same time, we also captured the journey of Vikram as a shipper, the challenges he has faced, and the interesting innovations he made that helped him save cost and improve efficiency. So here's Vikram Puri with one eye down memory lane and the other one peeking into the future. So Vikram, tell us a little about Transworld first. How did this idea of getting into vehicle tracking come about? At a time when there was no tracking, literally.
Right. So we were, I had started a company called IVRCL along with 3 other people. I was one of the people who started it. That went on to become India's largest infra company. We started in 92 and we listed on the Bombay Stock Exchange in 95. And a year or so later, I decided that, I want to do something in technology and consulting. And so I started Transworld in 96 as a business and then became a company in 99. And we came across, I had bought into a company that was financed by Gujarat Venture that was not doing well. So that turned out to be a bad investment. But what they used to do was they used to make time and motion counters. So you could put them in a factory and detect, each machine is making how many strokes or how many parts are being made and things like that. And I said, why don't we adapt this to other applications, and chose an application that I felt was the most inefficient business in the country. And that was logistics. Because
do you think it is still the most inefficient?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah. So it's become much better than what it used to be. Right. But in terms of productivity and efficiency, we are still very low down there. Right. So the reason I chose the most inefficient business was that I felt that even if we made a small improvement, it would be a significant value. It would be of significant value. Right. And I thought the first thing that we needed to do was to know what was happening. And we took that time and motion counter, and we created our first vehicle data logger. Okay. So there was no GPS in that. And we used to measure how many kilometers the vehicle ran and at what time. So it was time and movement. And from that, we used software to derive where it would have gone, because no maps either, no GPS.
Correct.
So you were only measuring what time you started, what time you stopped, and how much you drove and at what speeds you drove. Basically, that was it. And my first customer in 98 was Gati.
Okay.
Yeah. So Gati fitted it on 250 of their vehicles. We did a trial and then, of course, they installed it. And it worked very well. They used it almost for 3-4 years. And for them, it really enhanced their productivity because they used to use contracted vehicles for milk runs.
Right.
And they had a problem with SLAs, turnarounds, actual kilometers run, and things like that. So this did the job perfectly. But it had lots of teething problems, like all technology has when it starts. So we would have problems with the clock on the device would shift. So if the clock becomes a little faster, so it, instead of starting at 6 o'clock, you show the vehicle had started at 5 o'clock. So and then whenever you introduce new technology in any industry, the user always attacks the technology because he says, we are already doing things that are efficient, and here comes this guy who says, I'm going to do it better than you,
Right.
and I'm going to show you that you're not doing it doing it efficiently. So we had all these operators, drivers, all coming and saying, ye time theek nahi hai, ye distance sahi nahi hai, and we went through that whole iterative cycle of verifying, checking, and all that. And in those days, vehicles didn't have any electronics, so
Correct.
you didn't have a sensor where you could sense what the speed was, or what. Even the odometer is mechanical. It was not even electromechanical, mechanical. Yes.
True.
So it had a cable, and that cable used to rotate, and number of rotations used to cause the counter to change.
Right.
And we said, how are we going to measure speed and time? So we, on the propeller shaft of the vehicle, we made a big clamp. So we made a 2-piece clamp that fitted around the propeller shaft. We bolted both sides, and we put 4 nuts at equidistant space with the heads protruding. And we had a proximity sensor. So every time the head of the nut crossed the sensor, we would count 1 pulse. So we had 4 pulses per revolution, which was a highly accurate speedometer and highly accurate odometer. And the actual odometer on the dashboard was completely inaccurate. And our system would say that you've done 95 kilometers. That would say you've done 104 kilometers. Okay, and we would have this continuous argument, and we would say, measure it. And so, how do you measure it? You take another vehicle with another odometer, which doesn't work also. Right. So it was a constant challenge. And that challenge, by the way, exists even today, even with GPS. So we have,
inaccuracies are there.
So we have very large customers. So GPS is not inaccurate. It's how you use the data to compute that's inaccurate, and the interval at which you pick up the data. So Transworld's devices, our devices, we pick up data at 1 second interval.
Okay.
And mostly everyone else does it at a 10, 20 or 30 second interval. So that 10, 20, 30 second interval causes a lot of error because you're not picking up interim data points, which may cause the averages to go higher or lower. But what actually happens today is that our GPS still says that you've done 100 kilometers, and the driver says, I've done 110, and he sends you a picture of his odometer, and this is on a new vehicle, or maybe a vehicle which is just 2 or 3 years old, which ordinarily today has an electronic odometer. Right. So first of all, the odometers have tolerances. Every device or instrument has a tolerance. And if you have a plus minus, say, 5% tolerance, so when you do 1,000 kilometers or you do 2,000 kilometers in a month, that means plus minus 100 kilometers. So it could be 2,100 or 1,900. Correct. Whereas the GPS is, you're measuring the point to point. So it's very precise and very exact. So unless you lose data, you're going to be far more accurate than everyone else. And the other problem, which most people don't realize, is that when you buy a vehicle or you buy new tires for your vehicle, your tread depth is, say, 20 mm. By the time the tires are worn, the tread depth is 1 mm, 1.5 mm by the time you change the tire. So that 19 mm of tread depth loss translates into almost 40 mm of diameter loss. So the smaller the diameter, the more the number of rotations the tire takes to go the same distance. So your odometer is measuring number of rotations. Right? So as your tire gets older, your odometer gets more and more inaccurate. And the moment you put in a new tire, suddenly it becomes much more accurate. So most people say that, after the vehicle runs 10 or 20,000 kilometers, the average becomes better. That is absolute nonsense.
Oh my God.
So we had all these very interesting, learnings over a period of time.
But Vikram, while you got into the tech part of things, you have also been a transporter yourself. pre
Yes,
that.
that was before that. Well before that.
Well before that. Tell us a little about that journey.
Ah,
How did you
that
get
was-
into this?
So, a family friend got a World Bank contract for, in those days, you did reclamation by simply excavating soil in one place and then going and dumping it in the sea. And I hope there are no environmentalists listening, because that's exactly what you used to do in the late 80s. And we had this very large area to reclaim in Bombay. At that time it was called Bombay, not Mumbai. And we had to excavate in a place called Turbe and then transport that soil to this place where we would, dump it and then spread it, compact it, and generally reclaim that area and make a firm foundation for buildings to be built.
Right.
And typically in those days, Tata and Leyland were the two
They were the
transport
providers,
yes. And here the challenge was not construction, the challenge was logistics. So you needed to run this operation round the clock, and you needed to have, so your excavator typically could load maybe 20 trucks an hour.
Mhm.
And you had to make sure that you were feeding the excavator, because the excavator was the most expensive
Asset then,
asset
yes.
in the whole supply chain. In those days, dumpers used to cost 2,75,000 rupees each, And we sort of automated that system. And like I told you earlier, our trucks used to cross the Thana Creek Bridge, which is now called the Vashi Bridge, the old bridge, 1,200 times a day. And it was an operation that went through 3 police station jurisdictions. And at that time and at that age, I had no idea that what corruption was. And there was also a octroi post just after the bridge.
Was there, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
And we had this thing that they would stop the truck at every jurisdiction and say, we want to check your papers and do this and do that. And finally I went and, I had a scrap with the police inspector saying, why the hell do you stop my trucks every day for the same thing at the same place?
Right.
And he said, kya aap token nahi lete hain? So I said, what token kya hota hai?
You took that eventually?
So it was a completely organized system. So you paid 25 rupees per truck per month for every jurisdiction in those days.
Right.
And they gave you a color-coded token, which you stuck on your windscreen. And if the cop saw the token, he wouldn't stop your vehicle.
Yeah.
And the other problem was the octroi post. So the octroi on the truckload of dirt was 9 rupees.
You had to pay octroi on dirt as well?
Yes, you still do. I mean, wherever there is octroi, you still have to pay. In Maharashtra, you have to pay royalty for every truckload of soil that you take out. So the problem was not the 9 rupees, because you have to pay.
Right.
The problem was that you went into the octroi post and you came out only 4 hours later. So
correct. Time loss.
So here we were saying that my total trip time is 1 hour driving time, but octroi time is 4 hours. So 5-hour trip for a 1 hour driving time.
Right.
And this became a big problem. And I went to meet the assistant municipal commissioner to tell him this. So first of all, he was very intrigued. He says, you really bring 600 truckloads a day into the city? So I said, yes, I do. So he says, then how does it work? I said, I'm clogging your system by getting them in. So he says, what do you want to do? So I said, you give me a pass or some sort of token. So I will buy a preset number of tokens. And every time my truck driver comes, he will give 1 token, which means that it's already prepaid.
Yeah.
So he said, no, people will start printing it and there will be lots of fraud. I can't do that. You have to pay as you get it. So I said, then the only other option is allow me to put 1 guy at the entry to the octroi post and 1 guy at the exit. And your guy has to be there at the exit, at the entry. He has to issue the receipt for that 9 rupees as the truck comes in. My truck will not enter the octroi post. So 24/7, we had the guys under the chhatri who used to sit there, and they want exact change. Okay, so ये भी नहीं है कि 10 रुपए का नोट दो 9 रुपए के लिए, या 10 रुपए का दे दो तो 1 रुपए गया. That was 10% of the whole thing, right? It was a lot of money because you are doing it 600 into 10.
Correct.
6,000 rupees a day. So I said, nothing doing. हम तो ये वही देंगे 9 रुपया. So we had to tie up with a bank. I think it was Union Bank there. And every day our guy would go to the bank and they used to give you bags of 1 rupee coins. हाँ, 3 bag लेके आता था, दो हजार coins के. And he used to sit with the coins and he used to count 9. You know, every time the truck came, he would give 9 coins. That guy would give one receipt and the truck would pass through. But we used to save for us. So it was worth it.
Worth it, absolutely.
Yeah. So it was very, very unique, you know. And I told you that when we bought the trucks, we had to buy them without tires because the excise duty on the tires was very high. So you bought the trucks without tires. They were delivered without tires. And then the dealer would sell you the tires and fit them and give them to you. And you would save some money. But
Vikram, you also had the practice of not buying stepney for your trucks.
Yes.
How did you manage that part of the operation?
So our calculation was how many. So if you're running 200 trucks and let's say every truck is doing, you know, a certain number of trips every day. So if you're doing 30 trips a day, which is a short lead, you can do 30 trips in 24-hour cycle.
Correct.
Yeah. So we anticipated that, you know, even if 1 out of 10 trucks has a flat tire every day, you're going to have no more than say 10 or 15 flat tires or 20 flat tires. So we got, you know, 4 completely assembled tires used to fit in the back of a Jeep. In those days, it was a Mahindra CJ 500, you know, those international Jeeps. So we put them in the back of the Jeep with a hydraulic jack and a wheel brace. And you know, being who I was a finicky guy, so wheel brace with a torque setting, so that the nuts have to be tightened to the right torque. So the Jeep used to patrol from the origin to the destination continuously, and rather it would make one trip, take a break, then make a trip. Okay. So any vehicle which had a flat tire, it would take out the, you know, ready assembled wheel and just replace the tire, and then it would drop that tire off at the repair shop. So the truck wouldn't stand for any amount of time, maybe 5 or 10 minutes till the next patrol came and gave them the tire. But what happened was that we saved almost 200 wheels completely. And we also didn't transport those wheels. So if you transported the stepney, you know, it has a significant weight.
Correct.
And if you're transporting it in 200 vehicles and you're doing 600 trips a day, so you're transporting that 50 kgs 600 times a day. You know, so that calculation was that why should I transport so many hundreds of tons over a period of a couple of years?
Right.
Because it's going to cost you somewhere. You know, the fuel and this thing. So it made lots of sense apart from the saving in capital. And also the management issues. So here I would have to inspect each and every tire on each and every truck to see that it was fit to be used when it was required. There was also a concern that tires used to be sold. So that, you know, drivers would sell off the tires and put an old tire there. So now you have to keep constantly checking and inspecting and all of that. So that also was eliminated to that extent of that stepney. So it made a lot of sense in doing that. And it worked out really well for us. I think, you know, we saved a lot of money, lots of time. And and we also realized that we don't have as many punctures as we thought we would. These punctures, a lot of them were fake punctures, because every time a puncture happened, you know, there was a 50 rupee, 20 rupee. In those days, money was smaller, which the guy would be able to pocket. So the moment he realized that now there's no question, he's never going to go to a tire wala, he's never going to have to pay anything, and he's never going to be able to get a reimbursement, that went away.
But then, do you think inherently transporters have always been very innovative?
They have been forced. When they've been forced to be, they have. But by choice, I think today we are seeing, you know, a different generation of people coming into the business. But earlier, who were the transporters? Transporters were typically people who had started with 1 or 2 trucks, you know, and they had come up the hard way. They were very hardworking. They were very distrustful of technology. Correct. Extremely distrustful. You know, they didn't really care about. Do you mind if I ask for a cup of coffee?
Yeah.
You guys? You can edit that out, right?
Yeah.
मेरे को coffee चाहिए, please.
I'm good, thank you.
So they were definitely innovative when the situation required them to be, when they were cornered. But by choice, they were more focused on actually, you know, running their businesses. I remember lots of our drivers were from Goa. We couldn't get drivers in Bombay.
Correct.
Yeah. So because people in Bombay didn't want to do the kind of work that you needed to do. And these Goans also were not the most,
They've been
efficient.
lazy
very,
lots, actually.
they were reasonably laid back and all
Yeah.
of that. And they needed their food, to be different and all of that. So once you did that, they were reasonably happy.
Okay.
But once in 2 or 3 weeks, a Goan driver would get this thing. He would feel homesick and he would just abandon his vehicle and go.
Yeah.
And a couple of them would actually drive off in the truck. So he would go and come back over the weekend. And he was looking for about 3 days. This guy is desperate. And I told you we had this computer where I had written this Fox Pro code. So I had to write a separate feature in that program which said that detect which vehicle number has not made a single delivery in the last 24 hours, because that one is off-road or disappeared or missing, because when you have so many vehicles running, you can't keep track of each one, right?
Absolutely.
Manually. So it would throw up those numbers every day and say, ye wala kahan chala gaya, ye wala kahan chala gaya. And this actually gave rise to a very tragic and also very interesting incident. So one early Sunday morning, I used to stay in Vashi in Navi Mumbai, because that was in between these two places. 6 o'clock in the morning, we had a site supervisor who came and banged on my door and he said कि साहब कुछ problem है. So क्या हो गया? So he said कि अभी 2 report में ये एक vehicle number आ रहा नहीं है. So he said, okay, that means he must have gone home. So is he gone? First question was that.
Right.
So he said, yes, he's gone. Okay. What about his assistant, the cleaner? So he's also gone. He came with him. So, okay, where was he last seen, last load? He had all that information. It was more than 48 hours. And then we said, okay, now, we have a patrol. So we went, told that guy, go to all the dhabas, find out where those regular haunts are. And anyway, so it transpired that he came to me on Sunday morning. It transpired that on Sunday evening, this guy went to a dhaba. He had not done a single trip in the previous 24 hours. And he went to a dhaba and he had a couple of drinks. And then he went to the loading point and loaded. But he never reached the other end. And I said, why would a guy run away with a truckload of dirt? If it was some valuable or something.
Understandable, yeah.
He's run away with our truck. So, of course, we have insurance and all of that. But tracking him down in those days was not as easy as it is today.
Correct.
So, we said, find out where he lives in Goa. Then we called the guy through whom we'd hired the drivers. He went to his house. He said, nahi, yahan pe to nahi aaya hai. And I said that there's something wrong. I don't believe that he's run off. And nobody in his right mind will run off with a truck full of matti. Where will he take it? So I said, let's go and check the road again to see whether he's in. So in those days, the road embankments were very high. And in Vashi, the tide used to come in almost to the side of the road.
Okay.
Yeah. And there was lots of mangroves on the sides.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought maybe he went off the road and, nobody looked there. And
right.
Yeah. So we went searching for the truck and we went back and forth. Nothing, all through. In the quarry also, we went, there were some particular roads which were not very easy to navigate. Nothing. Then at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I said, let's walk on the bridge, the old Thana Creek bridge. So it had a walkway on both sides.
Right.
And it's a long walk. You have to walk from one end if you want to see, right? Yeah. But in those days, the cops were not that, the traffic was not that, heavy, and the cops were not that aggressive. So the Jeep was following and we were walking on the side. And he says, the guy is telling, what do you think, that he's driven off the side? I said, well, that's the only possibility left.
Right.
And we came to a place where the barrier was broken and there was green paint on it, fresh green paint on it. And I said, see, the trucks got the same paint. So he said, but how do you know it's the sea? So Afcons was building the railway bridge on the side, which is now the railway bridge. So Afcons, had divers working in the sea. So I went to Afcons project site and I said, we've got a contract on the other end and can you help? So he said, what do you want? I said, I want a couple of your divers to go to that pier number 11 and dive there and see whether my dumper is there. So he said, okay. So they took a dinghy and 2 divers went, and 10 minutes later he came and he said, yes, it's there. So he had driven off. Then the divers, recovered the bodies, and then we had lots of drama, to get the truck out. So we got a crane. When the moment the crane came on the bridge, the police came, the municipal corporation came. They said, nothing doing, you can't do anything, you'll damage the bridge. Because if it hits the side or something, the bridge was already in trouble at that time.
Okay.
Yeah, the old bridge. So there was a speed restriction and there were all kinds of number of vehicles restricted while crossing that bridge. So I said, okay, I'll buy insurance because New India used to publish ads saying, we'll insure anything. So I said, will you insure the Thana Creek Bridge?
Right out.
So they said, no, this is ridiculous. I said, but you said anything, right? So there was one very senior guy. He said, okay. So he gave a quote, 75,000 rupees for 1 day of insurance cover. I said, that's ridiculous. That was not even the, if I recall, the new truck used to cost 2,80,000 rupees.
Correct.
So it was not worth it. Then finally we did something really innovative. So we got a whole lot of the fishermen who were fishing there. We tied their boats together. Okay. Waited for low tide. Then we asked the diver to go and put the sling around the vehicle. When it became high tide, the boats came up.
Right.
So the truck also came off the bed. And then we brought the boats to the AFCON's barge. And there the barge operator then picked up the truck with his crane and put it on the barge.
Oh.
Yeah. Then there was a 2-day drama because the barge operator told my guy कि मुझे 1,000 रुपया चाहिए उसको ट्रक को उधर साइड में रखने के लिए, which we said that you should do it free, somebody is right, how can you ask for money? तो हमने बोला हम पैसा नहीं देंगे, तो उसने बोला मैं करूंगा नहीं. So for 2 days that barge went back and forth with whatever they were doing with the truck on the side.
We will continue our interaction with Vikram on the other side of this very short break. You are watching Trans India, real people, real emotions.
मुझे ये बताते हुए बहुत खुशी हो रही है कि हमारी कंपनी पीके ट्रांसपोर्ट ने 300 नए ट्रक खरीद लिए हैं. यस. लेकिन सर, हमारी कंपनी ये ट्रक बेच कब रही है? क्या?
सर, मैं ट्रांसपोर्ट टुडे से हूँ. मार्केट में खबर है कि आपने 300 नए ट्रक्स खरीदे.
हाँ.
तो सर, ये ट्रक्स आप बेच कब रहे हैं?
कांग्रेचुलेशंस कुमार साहब, 300 ट्रक लिए हैं आपने, बधाई हो.
तो बेच कब रहे हो? अरे भाई, हर कोई मुझसे ही क्यों पूछ रहा है कि मैं अपना ट्रक कब बेचूंगा? आपने भी तो ट्रक लिए हैं ना, आपसे कोई क्यों नहीं पूछ रहा?
क्योंकि आपने खरीदे ही हैं बेचने के लिए, तो लोग तो आप ही से पूछेंगे ना.
मतलब
ये कि मैंने खरीदे हैं महिंद्रा ब्लेजो, जो दे ज्यादा कमाई पहले दिन से साल दर साल, और ये दे किसी भी और ट्रक के मुकाबले 10% ज्यादा माइलेज, सर्विस और स्पेयर का खर्चा सबसे कम, 2 सर्विस गारंटीज और IMAX टेलीमेटिक्स का भरोसा. तो कुमार साहब, मैंने ट्रक बेचने के लिए नहीं, I mean रीसेल वैल्यू के लिए नहीं, प्रॉफिट वैल्यू के लिए खरीदे हैं.
क्योंकि अब रीसेल हुआ पुराना, पहले दिन से प्रॉफिट कमाने का है जमाना.
तो कुमार साहब, सोच बदलो, तकदीर बदलेगी.
महिंद्रा ट्रक एंड बस, सोच बदलो, तकदीर बदलेगी.
Welcome back to Trans India, real people, real emotions. We are in conversation with Vikram Puri, Group President and CEO of Trans World Technologies Limited. For sure, transport business is not without its share of drama.
Yeah.
Every day.
And then finally we got the truck out, and then I think the AFCON senior management saw it and they said, what is that? And they got embarrassed. They said, oh, rakh do wapas. So we got our truck on the side next to the bridge. And they asked me, abhi kya kare? Isko garage mein le jaye ya kya kare? So I said, सारा तेल निकालो, नया तेल डालो, बैटरी चार्ज करो, जोड़ो, started. The truck started.
Wow.
So we drove it off. It was.
So no
it was
physical
that
damage
simple.
as such.
There was no physical damage because it landed in the water.
In the water, actually.
And it sank to the bottom. But the 2 people died. And we lost 2 of our guys there, which was, very tragic.
But Vikram, you had driver shortage back in those days?
Yes, but not the way it is now. So at that time, the driver shortage was, I think there was no dearth of drivers. There was this constant unnecessary attempt by transporters to pay just below the market price. If you were willing to pay the standard, you got drivers.
Right.
And the thing was that we had this whole mindset that if we have to make more money, we have to cut costs. We never thought about productivity. We only thought about controlling costs. And
Which is the case to date also, you think? Or the industry's changed to a certain extent?
I think everybody realizes that productivity is important. Everybody knows that the number of kilometers your truck does in a month or in a year is actually going to impact your bottom line far more than whether you pay your driver 2,000 rupees more or less. But the problem is that whenever somebody's tried to implement something which is different or innovative or technologically linked, it often goes wrong. And it doesn't go wrong because the tech is bad or the idea is wrong. It goes wrong because it's not executed or implemented properly. So, for example, we had Agility in India. Agility was one of my old customers, and they had a very unique system. So, unlike other transporters, they used to pay their drivers a salary, a proper salary with provident fund. They were employees of the company. They were multinational, and the drivers were employees. And they were operating in an Indian environment, Indian conditions. So, they had regular truck drivers, but they were, permanent employees. And fuel, unlike other transporters, there was no fixed allowance for a fixed distance, which is what most transporters did. They said, "No, we will monitor fuel consumption and we will give you the fuel that you need, just like you run your private car or anything else." But because of the way it was implemented, I thought it was a great idea because you were moving towards real visibility.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. The whole thought process is that I will fix the quantum of fuel I will allocate to the driver for a trip. And if he saves the fuel, he can earn it.
Yes.
Okay. And if he doesn't save the fuel, that's his problem. So now what you are doing is you're actually telling the driver that it's perfectly okay to do chori, because to save fuel, you're not giving him extra fuel. You are assuming that he's going to freewheel for a certain period of time. He's going to do, something else. And that's how he's expected to earn his income. And I think that's a very big problem. And there is no easy solution. I don't want to be sanctimonious by saying this is not the right thing to do or whatever. But I believe that the time has come for us to make a shift from, treating the driver as a temporary gig worker, which he may be, but, bringing him to the level of another professional who you've engaged to take your 50 lakh truck with a 50 lakh cargo, 1 crore cargo. You're entrusting him for, for a period of 10 or 15 days. You need to treat him and trust him like that.
Right.
And he also needs to learn what that trust is, and so it's on both sides. It's not an easy solution, but I think going forward, that's the only way to do it. And only if we manage that will we be able to beat the productivity issue. Otherwise, we are going to be stuck in that time warp which says कि एक ड्राइवर को एक ही गाड़ी दो, नहीं तो कोई खराब कर देगा तो पता ही नहीं चलेगा कि किसने क्या किया. So you want to fix accountability, so you assign it only to one guy. When you assign it to one guy, you are restricted by the number of hours he can do for you safely.
Correct.
So that is something that we have to tackle in mindset. So it is a problem today, and the driver shortage today is not because the transport industry has grown or whatever. I think the driver shortage is that drivers, like every other millennial or Gen X or Gen Y, they are also in the same category and they have the same approach and same attitude. They don't want to do that many hours. When there are easier options and jobs to do. So you have to make it worth their while. And I have always been a proponent of air conditioning the vehicle, of making sure that they have a place to stay or a place to sleep. But that's not how most transporters operate. They say वो तो अपना देख लेगा, ढाबा में रहेगा,
that mindset is
पैसा दे दो बस खत्म हो जाती है बात. That is something that needs to be addressed and tackled. And driving hours also need to be monitored. That's not happening.
I mean, I've seen drivers drive for 18 hours on the trot. Express delivery hai, ye hai.
So I think that those drivers and those operators are criminally liable. because they are doing something, for the sake of that profit or the sake of that saving. Forget about putting their drivers at risk and their own goods and own vehicles at risk. They're putting other people on the road at risk, and that is the real problem. That this is what we don't realize, that you've got this 40-ton thing coming at you at 80 kilometers an hour with a driver who hasn't slept in the last 14 hours. Okay, his eyes are closing. He's probably diabetic, because 40% of Indians are diabetic or pre-diabetic.
Yes.
Okay, his sugar levels are low. His attention and his reflexes are completely at their lowest, and he's coming head on at a car which maybe he will simply crush if he just drives over it. Yeah, and that I think is unforgivable. Yeah.
But Vikram, from being a transporter, now you're engaging transporters for the movement of your goods.
Yes.
Other side of the table, how do you deal with your transporters now?
Unsuccessfully.
It's
a very big challenge to convince them.
You've managed to get the efficiency level up at least?
Yes, I think so.
So what have you been doing? I mean, what things have you...
So one of the true indicators, I tell any logistics manager or any supply chain head, that the true indicator of what you are implementing is in a reduced cost. What's the point of implementing productivity or implementing safety if it's not resulting in a reduction in cost or an increase in profits? Okay. So while you say that I implement safety because I want everybody to be safe, the moral and ethical part of it, that of course, but it is just not true that safety is a cost. Actually, safety is a profit center. And I think that if you can, convince your transporters and your supply chain stakeholders, if you can convince them of this, you would have set in place a business process that will continue to yield dividends. Doing something at one time, one little bit of efficiency here or tweaking there may give you a little result which is very visible. But if you want to create a lasting business that gives you lasting returns, then you have to have, you have to think in the long term. And I think without a doubt, safety, road safety is the highest paying initiative that you can do in the supply chain.
Absolutely. And we don't take it seriously at all.
We don't believe in it. That's our problem. We don't believe. You know what the problem with road safety is? You go and talk to. I've had conversations, and in Castrol they used to have these annual meets.
Transporter meets.
We used to not just transporter meets. So we used to say, transporters, we don't want to meet. We want to meet the drivers, because we are monitoring driver behavior. What's the point of talking to a transporter? So we want the drivers to be there. And when those drivers used to be there, we used to say that those days we were talking about making seat belts mandatory even before the law came. Right. And I remember, I've had so many of these conversations where I said, "Ke seat belt lagana hai, vagera, vagera," and all that. And there was, in one of these meets, one of these guys, old guy, stood up and he said, "Saab, ek baat bataiye. मेरे को 35 साल हो गए गाड़ी चलाते हुए, ट्रक चलाते हुए. मैंने कभी जिंदगी में सीट बेल्ट लगाई नहीं, क्योंकि मेरे ट्रक में थी नहीं. मुझे तो कुछ नहीं हुआ ना." So I said, एक ही बार होगा. And you will not be there to tell us कि हो गया. So in this room, there is nobody who is here who can say that I was in an accident, I wasn't wearing a seat belt and I died because of that, because he can't be here then. And that's the thing. So safety is not, the value is not just that I had an accident and there is an injury or that. It's the cost of replaceability. How many drivers or managers or business executives can you replace or have on your payroll as spare or redundant just because somebody might have an accident? You simply can't afford to have an accident.
Absolutely.
So forget about the ethical and moral stuff, which everybody says all those things are, good to say and good to have, all of that. But I'm talking about real business. So if you want to run a profitable enterprise, and not just transport, if you ignore safety, then you are ignoring
heavy cost for
Yes, it's extremely expensive. It is a profit center, not a cost center.
Vikram, how much has tech developed to an extent where it is helping the transport industry now? I mean, all companies are run on tech. How much difference has that made?
So, when you fly an aeroplane, you have to fly at a certain speed. Okay. If you fly slower than that, you crash. So it's not a matter of saying that I'm moving at 400 kilometers an hour or 500 kilometers an hour. That's not fast, because if you move at 450 instead of 500, you're going to crash. So for you, that's the baseline.
Right.
Okay. So when you're moving at speed in business or in enterprise, you have to be thinking ahead of the business. So when you're driving, you have to think, you have to have that 2 second, 3 second
Yes.
anticipation, right? So that is exactly what you have to do when you run a business, especially in supply chain. So you have to be thinking ahead of the business. The problem with all technology implementation so far has been that it has just about started telling you what you did. And you're still not reached the stage where you are able to use that to think ahead of the business.
We're actually solving our problems rather than developing the future.
I don't even think that you ended up solving the problem. You only ended up quantifying and identifying the problem. Now, we are all reasonably capable. We've got experience in our businesses. So if we know what the problem is and we know where the problem is, most of the times we can solve it.
Right.
It's not a matter of ability. It's not a lack of ability that causes the problem. It's a lack of knowledge that the problem is there. Once we know what the problem is, we usually have a solution in our daily operations,
Right.
in our businesses. We know how to fix it.
Yes.
Yeah, we know how to fix it. We don't know that it exists till we identify it. We don't know to what extent it's a problem till we quantify it. And that is what technology is doing for us now. But what it should be doing is that look ahead anticipation. That is not happening. So if you ask me which transporter or which supply chain guy in the country, in India today, is able to tell you what is going to happen 4 days from now or 7 days from now, what is his load condition going to be or what is his off-road condition going to be, I think it's a zero at this time. There may be a couple of exceptions somewhere, but those are the
By and
outliers.
large.
And those are outliers. And that is the real key to it.
Finally, Vikram, 40 years in this business.
I don't know which business, because I've done so many of them.
So we'll stick to transport for now.
Yeah.
So 40 years in transport and tech, let me put it that way. What is the future roadmap? Where do you think these industries will grow?
So I think without a doubt, I believe that there will be a move to electric. Okay. And it will not be a move to electric for the reasons that people are moving to electric today. The move to electric is because electric is a far more efficient, far lighter propulsion system than combustion engine. Okay. It is much easier to maintain. It has fewer moving parts. It is much easier to drive. And as a matter of efficiency, it's highly efficient. So I'm not saying that solar power will make EV cheaper or anything like that. I am of the opinion that even if electricity were to cost more than diesel or petrol, electric is a better technology. So one, very clearly, moving to electric is the way forward and is going to be the way forward.
Okay.
Simply because it's simpler, cheaper, faster, not cheaper for operations. So that is a matter of opinion and what energy will cost in the future. And there are enough gurus who will give you predictions and forecasts on that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about it if I were a transporter. What are my biggest problems? Maintenance, uptime, reliability, fatigue with my drivers.
Yes.
So all of these things are addressed by electric. So if you're looking ahead, then it's electric. As an Indian transport owner, my blood boils if my driver is going to sit in the cab, switch on the engine and switch on his air conditioner. Right? But actually what I want to do is I want to tell him, hey, listen, even when you stop for the night, run the AC. Now, in an electric, that efficiency level is so high that it consumes, so in an EV, for example, in an electric car, you perhaps use 7 or 8% of the battery if the driver sits in the car the whole day and runs the AC. It's inconsequential.
Absolutely.
More importantly, The wear and tear on the engine is inconsequential. If you're going to run air conditioning or you're going to run refrigeration, you're running an engine all the time, that many hours. Here, that's not the case.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you don't need to run the main motor or the main engine to run the air conditioning. And if you can make your driver, reduce his fatigue by say 10 or 20%, that is going to save you a huge humongous amount of money. And it's also going to get you a driver when other people are unable to get one. So I think electric, for reasons other than energy costs. Okay, energy costs, of course, energy costs will be a bonus, lower energy, but everybody will have them. So, but if you adopt electric vehicles, you are going to eliminate your downtime, you're going to eliminate your wear and tear. There's less vibration, there's less damage, there's less structural issues. There are so many things that are better. And maintenance is the biggest thing. But what
The initial asset
you
cost
look at
and
a
the
guy,
transporters get scared because of
200 trucks, let's say if you own 100 trucks, okay? So at today's average, we are probably doing about 6,500 kilometers a month on them, 72,000 kilometers a year per truck across his fleet is what the average Indian transporter does. It's a guess, but I mean, I have 20 years of data to back that,
Yes.
okay? But, so in 72,000 kilometers, he will have to service his vehicle at least twice. With long drain engine oil and what have you, 30,000, 40,000 kilometers, saal mein 2 baar.
Correct.
Okay? He will need to change his tires at least once.
Absolutely.
Okay? Now imagine that going in for a service for an oil change twice a year for 200 trucks. Right? That's 400 oil changes. And I'm not even talking about diesel or petrol or anything. So this is something that has to be replaced.
It is
Yes.
mandatory.
Yes.
Has to happen.
Yeah, and each truck on the average is between 14 to 17 liters.
Yes.
So you 17 into 400 for a chota fleet. So we are in the there's no comparison between EV and internal combustion. Reliability, maintenance, maintainability is a big thing, and that's what's going to matter now. Number one is how many hours you can operate your vehicle. Number two is how easy is it going to be to make sure that your vehicle is not off-road either for routine maintenance or for repairs.
Absolutely.
And I think in both these cases, the EV wins. And cost-wise, except for the battery cost, I think the EV is cheaper than ICV.
Yes, the battery cost is a main component.
And so that battery cost problem is something that everybody is trying to solve. One of the ways of solving it is to lease batteries, have replaceable batteries, swappable batteries, and I think that will happen. Then we are getting longer and longer range vehicles.
That's getting better. Yes.
We are seeing that happen, across the board. So we are actually looking at taking a 40-ton truck for our internal transportation. We are looking at an EV because he's going to be parked, say 30%, 40% of the time. So as long as the charging arrangement is such that it doesn't involve a 10-minute thing to take out the cable, plug it in and switch on the charger. So if that can be solved, this is, for us, something like that works very well for internal within the plant transportation.
Absolutely.
You need to transport 40-ton coils from one place to another.
This makes sense.
Yes. But it also makes sense for even today, for any distance up to 200 kilometers, today it's commercially viable.
Absolutely.
So moving to electric is the one area, I think. The second is that you have to monitor driver behavior. So the driver is at the workplace is the truck. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with monitoring. We monitor our machine operators and our workers on our shop floor everywhere in the place. So all those things about that, you can't, there's a matter of privacy and all that, that's nonsense. And lots of transporters have come and said, the driver lives in the truck. And therefore, that's a privacy issue, which I acknowledge. But you need to find a solution to that. Either you need to partition it off or you need to do something that allows for it to be done. But in the interest of safety and in the interest of productivity, you can't not have this information or this data.
Absolutely.
And as far as freight is concerned, which is the biggest concern of the smaller operators, smaller transporters, because they don't get business easily, that is going to change because that is going to get Uberized. There are so many platforms now that are coming up which, allow you to pick up freight, and all you need to do is have a reliability track record, which is what, say, an Amazon vendor would have in terms of ratings, right? So you would need to have a rating, and that rating has to be public. So if you have the guts to capture what you do, then do what you say, and then publish that, you're going to have people who will come and give you business.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and your access to that business, which was the constraint earlier, is taken away by going to a technology platform that allows you to actually go and bid for the business that you want.
Absolutely.
So the second thing, as I said, is capturing driver and driving behavior. The third area, and I think you should address that because that has become the elephant in the room in India, that we talk about autonomous vehicles. Yes, and everybody says that it will never happen in India because Indian traffic is so unreliable and cannot be predicted and cannot be anticipated. But you and I drive on the roads, right? Our drivers drive on the roads. We anticipate the traffic. We are driving. And with the exception of a few, we are all extremely conscientious, and we, if not for others, at least we are conscientious of ourselves.
Yes.
We are selfish about that. So, in spite of that, we have one of the highest accident rates and fatality rates in the world. Correct? And a lot of that comes from bad road infrastructure, bad markings, lack of people who follow the rules. So it's a combination of all of that. And capturing driver behavior, which was the number 2 thing I said, would go a long way, because if you start making your drivers follow the rules, that's going to make a huge difference.
That's where the change happens.
Yes. So here in the third area that we are talking about, autonomous vehicles, my belief is, and so I've been not just in transport, I've been in technology. I have 4 technology patents, and we've been doing a lot of work in that. And what we see and what we believe, or what I believe, is that in a situation like India's, in a situation like ours, it is autonomous vehicles that will do far better than the human drivers. Mm-hmm. Because it's a matter of training. You look at autonomous vehicles, the moment a single mistake happens, which may or may not result in an accident, the one thing that happens every time in autonomous vehicles is that learning gets copy-pasted onto 500 others. Correct. In any country, anywhere in the world, if you have a 20-year-old driver, it takes him 20 years to become a 20-year experienced driver.
Right.
Okay. So now imagine a driver where I've taken all the 30-year experienced safe drivers of the world. So I've filtered them by, they don't drink, they don't smoke, they are healthy, their eyesight is good, they follow all the rules. I've taken those drivers, taken their driving capabilities and put it all in a little box. Okay. And then every time those experienced drivers make a mistake and they're mature enough to say, oh, I made a mistake, and they tell every other driver in the world instantly that I made a mistake, almost as if by telepathy, so that the mistake that he made now becomes a learning for me instantly. Yes, loaded in that little box. So the autonomous driver or the autonomously driven vehicle is going to be far safer, far more efficient, and far more capable, and far more able to adjust to unreliable or unpredictable traffic conditions like India than a human driver. So if you take a young man or woman and train him or her to be a truck driver, it will take you 2 or 3 years before he's experienced enough to be given a truck, a 40-ton truck to drive from Kashmir to Kanyakumari. Okay? And then also he will not be as good as the guy who's been doing it for 25 years. But with technology, he'll be as good as the best guy on the first day. And he'll be as safe. So the other thing is rule breaking. Yeah. Autonomous vehicles will simply not break rules. So you see all those jokes about, the pilotless, driverless car mistook that puddle for deep water, so it stopped. I think it did the right thing. If I can't tell how deep a nala is, I would be a fool to drive through it. As a human being, as a human driver, right? Just because you have the benefit of knowing that that's just a puddle that you already knew.
Correct.
Yes. So if you lived next door, you would know that, and therefore you would drive through it. But if you're driving on the highway and it's at night and you come to a pool of water, you don't know how deep that is. So would you drive through it? So that's exactly the decision that driverless vehicle had to take, and it took the right one.
Yes.
So this is the future. So these three things will change, and therefore, transporters who are sort of struggling with all of these, they're resisting these changes. Strangely, they're resisting EVs, they're resisting technology, and they're resisting driverless vehicles. They don't believe in them.
Because we don't have one as such, as of now.
That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter, because it's a matter of one guy saying, I'm ready to do it, and there will be a Tesla or somebody else who will come and say, okay, well, let's do a trial, let's do a run.
Let's do a trial.
Yeah.
But in US, they are running trials.
Absolutely. Excuse me. Absolutely.
You think that could come in India as well?
Yes.
The day is not far.
Yes. I believe that. And I believe that's the way forward. And if you want to think ahead of your business, you need to be thinking about this. You may not agree with me, okay, so which is fine, but at least think about it and evaluate it. Think of the pros and cons.
Absolutely.
So one of our mental blocks is, नहीं, उसके बारे में यार वो बता मत, I don't want to talk about it. It's not going to happen. Pointless. कोई फायदा नहीं है. Okay, no debate.
Let's discuss it.
So you debate it, challenge it. So prove me wrong, So
perfect. Vikram's journey has come a long way, and he has seen the road transport industry very closely from both sides, as a transporter and as a shipper. At the same time, he has contributed immensely to the industry at a time when there were hardly any players in the tracking and technology space. It was a delight talking to Vikram and knowing him for decades. It was a pleasure talking to Vikram, and knowing him for decades, it was a delight going down memory lane with him. We will be back again next week with another interesting conversation. You have been watching Trans India, real people, real emotions. Until next week, stay safe and drive safe. Jai Hind.